even though this is yesterday, the idea that Tomahawks, and this was, now, I don't know why the news.com.au only just picked up on this yesterday, but yeah, no, the US has said now for a while they're not going to give Tomahawks to Ukraine. Well, for a variety of reasons. One is they don't have the launch platforms for them. Two, they are nuclear capable, and Russia's basically said you're going to escalate. It's an escalation of the conflict. And of course, Zelensky throwing rhetoric around that Russia was shaking in their boots once Trump mentioned the possibility of Tomahawks. It seemed, there's a meme floating around of basically Trump saying, I'll give Ukraine Tomahawks. Putin calls him up and says, no, you won't. And then Trump says, I won't give Ukraine Tomahawks. Might be a bit cynical, but practically is probably what happened. I mean, it's a case of you don't want to escalate things like that too much. And, well, they've already got Storm Shadow, they've got Atacams, they've got their Flamingo, which looks like a V1, souped up V1. They've got a variety of cruise missiles already. The TLAM, Zelensky has campaigned heavily for the missiles. Kremlin's issued warnings. Again, this is nothing new. Trump has shown little enthusiasm for the proposal because I think people sat him down and explained what the reality was going to be. And so he's put his foot down again and said, no, not going to happen. Does not want to intensify the ongoing conflict by adding fuel to the fire. Well, he already is. Just doesn't really add anything new. Yeah, they should stop right now at the battle line, go by the battle line wherever it is, or else it gets too complicated. If violence continues, okay, drones, and Ukraine fired drones back. Zelensky said the attacks showed Moscow was aiming to inflict harm on Spain. He's prattling on, really. Kiev said it had deployed... Okay, this is an interesting one. So this isn't the lead in the article. And what we're going to see is there's two other articles. And this is actually the most important thing, I think, coming out of it. Pokrovsk. I'd probably mispronounce that. Kiev said Saturday deployed special forces to the eastern city of Pokrovsk, where it is under pressure from an intense Russian assault, involving thousands of troops. My understanding is Pokrovsk is one of the few Ukrainian-held readouts, defensive positions that is key to unlocking a massive amount of terrain. Now, Russia's been slowly pressuring, even a lot of the frontline mappers, which quite frankly have been pro-Ukrainian, reluctantly acknowledge that Russia's been making advances. I mean, they're trying to downplay it as much as possible. Over the weekend, Kiev did an aerial insertion of special forces. All right, so the question is, here's an issue. The rule of thumb for use of special forces has always been you don't want to use irregular troops in regular combat. Now, special forces are irregular troops. They're not infantry as such. You don't put your special forces teams in a trench or in infantry positions and expect them to fight a standard infantry engagement or mechanized or armored. Now, they can do elements of it, but they're not going to sustain a sustained operation as a regular body of troops. They're irregular forces, special forces. And so they can engage in certain actions. So, at the same token, you don't want to apply your regular forces to, regular forces to irregular action. There is some variation on that. Given how big the US Special Forces have become, and special forces adjacent. US Rangers are almost a blend between the two. They are still very much regular type troops, but they are bridging that gap to special forces to a degree. The mountain infantry, I think that's what they call it, particularly in fighting in eastern Afghanistan, they were specialized, very, very specialized. Now, they fought as regular infantry and regular troops, but they were upskilled, particularly in mountainous terrain. And so, yeah, they're still regular, but they had elevated capabilities. But you're not going to take a special forces detachment and put them into a static defense, urban defense like is going on in Pokrovsk, for example, or Mariupol in the past, or things like that. They're just going to get destroyed. You're wasting the value of what special forces really are. So this aerial insertion that had taken place was, criticised rather openly. And it'd been a bit of a surprise because I'd seen increasing chatter over the weeks of this push by Russia and Russian forces, and then corresponding claims by Ukrainian supporters that was all lies, was not happening, that Ukraine was about to push Russia into the Bering Sea, into the Bering Strait, all that sort of stuff. But eventually the frontline mappers acknowledged this was going on. So this special forces insertion raised eyebrows because they were being sent into a heavily combated zone and no one could sort of work out what the purpose was for. To what end was this being carried out? And there appeared drone footage not long after that effectively showed them being wiped out within seconds of them hitting the ground. And people say it's an absolute disaster. They've wasted highly trained forces, etc., for no gain. That their whole idea of them being sent there was as a PR stunt. They wanted a photo of armed troops waving the Ukrainian flag in front of the city sign, that sort of thing. And the location that they were inserted seemed to support that allegation, that assumption. And no, they were pretty much eradicated very, very quickly. So then that raises a whole bunch of questions about why all of a sudden this is being acknowledged at the chatter level, where people are normally very much one side or the other. They're like, no, this is a disaster that's unfolding for the Ukrainians, and that the Russians are going to take it in the next week or two. And when they do so, that opens up massive territorial gains for them. And it's, more than likely going to happen. The sending of the GUR, I think they call them, to the city is almost a last-ditch effort to hold out. You're sending everything you can to prevent it. Plus, it also, if you're grinding down special forces in urban combat, well, you take them away from being used elsewhere where they might be more effective, or effective full stop. Russian forces kept attacking regions. We're getting into various bits and pieces. Russia's attacks cut power to the entire eastern Donetsk region, so the other regions. The strikes on energy infrastructure are primarily aimed at wearing down the country's civilian population, a charge Russia denies. Okay, that's one of the reasons why there's ICC warrants out for certain Russian personnel. But looking at what constitutes a war crime. It's not targeting civilian population specifically. It's supporting the infrastructure of the combat. It's a very narrow reading. And I think those ICC warrants are probably going to go away, to be honest, eventually. So yeah, Ukraine's top military commander announced he had deployed special forces. Yep, there's a lot of criticism now appearing about this. Where Kiev is under pressure from a Russian army, hundreds of Russian soldiers have infiltrated the logistics hub. Well, they're not just closed in; they're kettling it. The initial frontline coverage, mapping coverage, suggested a bulge, basically that the Russians were being cut off, and basically there were thousands of Russians now going to be eradicated by the Ukrainians, encircled and eradicated, when, well, the truth apparently is that, not happening. These battle maps are woeful, to be honest. ISW are very heavily slanted in what they present, to be honest. The city's capture would be a major propaganda boost for the Kremlin. Oh, very much so. Very much so. And this comes back to then, now, we stop here and consider those statements about wanting to freeze the front lines where they are and immediately go for peace. And that Ukraine's best chance for peace was yesterday. Russia's got no interest in stopping right now. G'day, Ash. How are you, mate? So Russia's got no interest of stopping right now. If they take this place, Pokrovsk, then they're going to make massive territorial gains. Not necessarily that they want it, but they can. And Ukraine loses one of its big strategic points and tactical points. Ukraine's going to suffer a big strategic loss if they wait until after this place is captured before trying to engage in peace. So the idea of stopping the front lines where they were a couple of weeks ago would have kept Pokrovsk in Ukrainian hands. It's not going to happen at this rate. It's going to be Russian. And a comprehensive operation to destroy and displace Russians from Pokrovsk is underway. The reality of what's being seen in shared in combat footage, groups online and discussions around it, it seems to be that this is an almost guaranteed Ukrainian loss, and one that's going to happen relatively quickly. Once the collapse starts, it's going to be rapid. So videos published on social media purported to show helicopters flying towards the city. Yep, this is the footage. While another, purportedly taken by a Russian drone, showed figures scrambling from a helicopter that landed in the field. There's no chance they're going to use, and they were supposed to be Black Hawks, one or two of their 3 Black Hawks, and risk losing them on something like this. It basically gave up the special forces. More missiles. Ukraine's been doing the same. More air defenses. Blah. Yep. Okay. So, we've listened to what the ambassador had to say. We now have a look at a bit more. We've verified that they're not getting TLAMs. There is now a stronger push from people involved to say, look, cut it out. Time to stop. NATO will stand with Ukraine to get long-lasting peace, senior NATO official tells the BBC. Giuseppe Dragoni, Admiral Giuseppe Dragoni. Yes, Ash, and that's what I just covered. The old rule of thumb, don't use irregular troops for regular combat, and don't use regular troops for irregular combat. And so, yes, if you feed your special forces into a system where you're going up against regular troops in what is regular combat, your special forces are going to get destroyed. I mean, they may have minor victories, but the regular forces will destroy them. Just as you shouldn't put your regular infantry into a special forces situation, they'll just get destroyed or fail to meet the objective. Yeah. So yeah, this idea, and this is what caught the attention of people online, was this. They were questioning why the special forces had been dropped off in such a manner, had been committed in such a manner, and almost immediately there was Russian drone footage which basically showed them being wiped out within minutes of getting off the choppers. And yeah, it was geolocated and everything to the right location and everything else. It seems like a rather big failure, to be honest. Well, that's the thing. Your pro boxers, your special forces in that regard. And so, yeah, so the Ukrainians fed the pro boxer into a pit full of regular people. Yeah. And see, that was what people were questioning as well. It's like, it wasn't traditional special forces usage. Like, there was nothing there that they could have targeted it effectively as a special forces detachment. And the suggestion was it was just used as a photo op that, sadly, for the Ukrainians, cost them their special forces guys and girls. Probably just guys. Yeah, so NATO will stand with Ukraine up to the day in which we'll have them sitting around the table for a long-lasting peace. All right, so these articles now are starting to appear with more frequency, which is, oh, no, peace. We just looked at what's happening with Pokrovsk. There's an incentive for them to hurry up and come to the table, or else they're going to lose another chunk of terrain and strategic capability. From an operational point of view, he considered the Russian-Ukrainian war was bogged down. Yeah, been saying that, and that it was almost time to sit and talk because it's a waste of lives. Well, Trump said that and everyone laughed at him. Finland and Sweden join NATO. Now, Finland is going to be having a very cold winter because Russia went, fine, you don't want our stuff, you're not getting our stuff. Admiral Dragoni described the war as a strategic failure for for Putin, despite recent incremental advances by Russia on the battlefield. I don't know. I mean, they will not get a friendly or puppet government like in Belarus. Putin will not. I don't see. Putin hasn't said he wants a friendly government in Kiev. To be quite honest, he doesn't care. He doesn't want Kiev. He's been saying that. And if anything, an unstable government in Kiev is more beneficial to Russia than anything else. And if anything, that's what's going to come out of this, is a nation, Ukraine, that's going to struggle to find an economic base again. It's going to struggle to bring its people back into the country. It's going to have post-conflict reconstruction. It's going to be unstable for many years. Well, that serves Putin well. European nations prepared to keep up with supporting Ukrainian defence. He believed that had something of a wake-up call and were now taking charge of their own defence, which includes the fact that NATO members are now raising the defence spending to 5% of GDP. Trump has been calling for them to raise their spending for years, feeling a bit annoyed that the US was bearing most of the cost of NATO. The Russian talk about Poseidon and the Bureau, whatever that word is, that nuclear cruise missile. Yeah, they're not events, to be honest. And the jumping up and down about their importance, well, they've been under development for years. And Russia's got plenty of missiles and stuff they can use long before these things. So they're not going to change the situation in Ukraine, to be honest. And I mean, so I agree what this guy has to say in that regard. We're not threatened by them. Yep, no, fair enough. The risk of future invasions of attack, he said, if there were to be any, it was likely to be the Baltic states. Well, Estonia is carrying on like a pork chop, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, Russia weren't really that interested before. But Article 4 and Article 5, yep, fine, whatever. The air defense, the drone wall, etc. The thing that stands out here is that the drone airspace incursions in Denmark, Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, Sweden, no, Norway, aren't being mentioned. Now, they're mentioning the ones that are known to be Russian-linked or linked to the conflict in Poland and Romania, well, alleged to be Russian, but certainly linked to the Ukrainian conflict. Those ones, yep, I don't think anyone denies they're linked to that conflict. But all these other ones suddenly aren't being talked about. And in fact, Belgium had some just the other day, and funnily enough, no one took any photos of them. And the helicopter sent to chase them lost contact. There is a lot of really odd things about all of this. But anyway, so this is interesting to have such a senior NATO member come out and make statements like this of like a push to peace. And again, it's this Pokrovsk, I think, is the like Mariupol was before, and Bakhmut, and just trying to think some of the names where Azovstal was. Well, Azovstal in itself, plus the nuclear power plants, and yeah, a bunch of other places. But this is the latest key location, and it seems to be almost at irrespective of everything else that's going on. And that, yeah, Pokrovsk is, yeah, I mean, keep an eye on it. Seriously, keep an eye on it. When this goes, it's going to be a big change. So, Ukraine's top military commander admitted soldiers are facing difficult conditions defending Pokrovsk in the face of massed Russians. Yep, okay, which, again, if you've been listening to anybody else online, was saying it was never going to happen because the Russians are all dead. Hang on, anyway. So that Ukrainian troops were fending off a multi-thousand enemy force, but denied Russian claims they were surrounded or blocked. Yep. Well, oh no, I was going to say the camera stopped working. Just delayed for a sec. He confirmed that elite special forces had been deployed to protect key supply lines, which army sources said were all under Russian fire. Well, if you're under indirect fire, so artillery fire or drone attacks, again, why put your special forces out to protect supply lines? That's not a job of a special forces. And where they were inserted was on the north side of the city. Okay, so it might be one of the few protected supply lines the Ukrainians still have. But, again, the appropriateness... And then that raises a question. If they had to commit special forces in this manner, what does it mean about their reserves of regular forces? If they have to commit regular special forces in a role like this, where are their regular reserves? That'll be interesting to see as well. Yeah, so Kiev might have been denying the special force. Yeah, so this is part of the drone footage. So Black Hawk, people running across a paddock, and then drone footage showing them not running anymore. So blah, blah, blah. Unclear when or where footage was recorded. Yeah, okay. So they're selling it as like, oh, it's great. Deployment of special forces suggests they're trying to hold on to that. Well, they're going to try anyway. Ukrainian troops have improved their tactical position. Okay, that's Ukrainian side saying that. Yes, the defense of Pokrovsk was a priority. Well, yeah, because once they lose that, it really opens the ability for the Russians just to roll over open terrain. Growing reports of Russian advances around the strategic town to the west of Donetsk. Again, you look at all these war hawks and supposed war observers and stuff online who've been selling straight Ukrainian propaganda for months and months and months on end. It's like, or magically these things have suddenly changed. It's, well, no one knows how it happened. Well, because you weren't looking at it objectively. Objectively, sadly, the reality is, for the Ukrainians, the Russians are still coming pretty hard in this regard. And yeah, it's taken them a long time to get this town settlement. It's probably gonna happen. So yeah, images shared. Yeah, we saw all that stuff online. Although location and date of the footage could not be verified. The date can't be, but the location, people have sort of geolocated it, that it is just to the north of Pokrovsk. And then the Russians said they'd thwarted the deployment, killing all troops who landed. Yeah, the footage that exists supports that. Some people estimate the town is very much contested, which goes against the ISW and other supposed god tier references. Military source in Donetsk said the Ukrainian forces were not yet surrounded, but their supply lines were under fire. Well, yeah, I mean, they've got the ability to indirect fire for all that sort of stuff. ISW said the Ukrainian forces had marginally advanced in counterattacks, but the town was mainly contested. Okay, we've heard that all that before. Here we go. It's a key transport and supply hub whose capture could unlock Russian efforts to seize the rest of the region, so the rest of the Donetsk region. Kiev also believes its capture would help Russia in its efforts to persuade the US that its military campaign is succeeding. Well, they're taking ground, so that succeeds. And therefore the West should acquiesce to its demands. Zelensky has publicly agreed with Trump's proposal for a ceasefire that would freeze the war along the current front lines, which therefore means that the reality is Ukraine is not doing as well as Zelensky keeps crowing about. Because if they were succeeding in their counterattacks and their gains that everyone says they're doing, they wouldn't be rushing to agree to this freezing of the front lines because they know they're under pressure.